Welcome back, my people. This is the Road to CA podcast, the show for aspiring chartered accountants to inspire, empower, and inform the difference makers of tomorrow. Yo, guys, today we're joined by the hostess with the mostest, the queen of the scene, the power of the hour or two. This might be that fire, guys. I'm just saying. She's certainly one of the most famous CAs today, being one of the queen bees of CA content creators. Hey, guys, we've got a CA content creator. Yes, she is. And you can find her socials definitely in the show notes. LinkedIn's and everything. She's on Instagram. She's an honorary member of the Golden Key Society. She's a Psycho Difference Maker for 2024. We'll definitely chat about that. And is currently a supervisor at Gold City Offshoring. Her mission, above all, however, is to disrupt the corporate world through challenging stereotypes and corporate beliefs through a biblical lens. Hey, most importantly, she likes watching K-drama, K-comedy, K-everything. She likes to read her Bible. She listens to podcasts and occasionally doom scrolls in her spare time. She's a wife. She's a mother. She's a believer. We're joined by none other than Lesego Rango. Lesego, how are you?
Oh, that's what should have came up.
I need the buttons. there.
I'm good, Alunga. How are you doing?
I'm excited, obviously, as I've already expressed. I think you are in a lot of ways. So I've actually known you before we met at the previous Bridge the Gap event. You are, and I note here when I said challenging stereotypes and corporate beliefs, you are what professional South Africa needs. That's part of what you are and who you are. So I'm excited, man.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much. It's a challenging task, but it's also a much needed task. So I'm glad to be the disruptor of the age.
Okay, we always go back at the beginning of the road to CA because before you became the disruptor, there was a whole lot of disruption that was happening in your life. So let's go back. Let's go back to where this whole CA thing started for you.
Sure, the journey to CASA. I love this story, and I think I'll never get tired of talking about it because it's very unconventional and uncommon. So unlike people that had dreams and beliefs of becoming a CA and knowing much about the CSA journey, I didn't have that. So I'm originally from the Northwest Province. I grew up in the township called Kanana. I've been grandmother's child my whole life, grew up in a very warm, loving family. One thing about me, academics was my thing. I just loved school. Like, I know in Black homes, you get the one that clean, the one that loves school, the one that does sports. I was the one that did school. Don't ask me to do any chores, you know? And I carried that posture all throughout my high school experience. And I think when we had to start applying for university and people are trying to say, what are you going to do? What are you going to study? I didn't know what I wanted to study. I made up my mind eventually to say I wanted to do biochemical engineering. And very vain reasons, it sounded great. It sounded intimidating. It sounded like my parents are going to be like, your child is a biochemical engineer. You know? But it was because I was doing physics and one of the elements on the periodic table was beryllium. And I found out that beryllium is used in medicine and it's used a lot by biochemical engineers. So that was the genius behind why I wanted to study it. I applied for it at Vids. I was so sure that this is like the only career path for me because of lack of research and also being vain at the end of the day, you know? So I got provisionally accepted, which was great. But after my matric results were released, it's not that I did terrible. I think I got high 70s. But because biochemical engineering is in the medical field, they wanted 80s, you know? So my provisional acceptance was void and null because they were like, no, ma'am, sorry, there's no space for you. Like, but what do you mean? I don't have a plan B. I didn't apply anywhere else.
Sure.
I was really, really shook at that time. And I think because I've been a scholar, my parents were also a little bit confused. Like, why didn't you apply anywhere else? Like, why don't you have an alternative? Like, I had none, Alunga, like absolutely none. So I think in January of that year, that was 2014, I came to Joburg and I was really knocking on the gates of it. Like, guys, surely I can squeeze me in. Like, I didn't apply anywhere else. And unfortunately, none of that was taking place. They were like, nah, ma'am, there's nothing for you. And a friend of mine, I think, midway through the month in January, he told me about this university called Monash. And Monash was under Australia at that time in 2014. And I didn't know much about it. It's an Australian university. The only other bigger universities that I knew were the ones that we know, UJ, UP, UCT, Stellenbosch, and I'm like, Monash, what am I going to say? People, Monash, what is it? But I had no choice because their academic year started in March. And so I went to go and applied. And my first major, actually, when I applied at Monash was economics. And again, very vain. I didn't do research. The counselor told me that you like mathematics, try economics. And because I wasn't trying to think for myself, I was like, sharp, I'll do economics. That's how I majored in economics. But I think 6 months into the semester, I already knew like this was not going to work. Like I'm not vibing with statistics. I'm not vibing with the graphs in macroeconomics and microeconomics. So I changed my major to accounting. And now I should mention accounting was a subject that I did in high school, but I really, it was the worst one of them. Like if ever I chose subject, accounting would never be the option. But funny enough, in that first 6 months, I was really enjoying accounting. And then that's why it was easier for me to change my major from economics to accounting. I did so well in it, Alunga, throughout first year, second year, third year, even though I was turning up in varsity, guys, I was like the bad blonde hair, crop top, but I was sitting in front answering corporate questions like, sir, I don't think this valuation is correct, but that time blonde hair, top, that was like my vibe,
Yeah.
Really did enjoy it. And I also enjoyed playing sports all throughout varsity. I was captain of the netball team. I was into running. I was into going to the gym. And I think that also kept me sane. But then I think after we graduated, I was under the assumption that I was going to work. Like I didn't know again, CA journey. I still didn't know what it was. So I was surprised when my friends told me, no, we needed to apply for our fourth year. And yeah, I'm like, what honors? What's that? They're like, yeah, no, this is the CA journey. There's like 7 years or 4 more years to go. It's a 7-year in total minimum journey. And I'm like, hey, nah, guys. I told my family after wearing my pura, I'm going back home. So that's the beginning of my CA journey that year when it was a bunch of confusion, a bunch of uncertainty, and also not really grasping how big this journey is. So CTA threw hands, it threw major hands. I started seeing marks come back. I was getting 30%, 40%, And now the scholar in me was traumatized because I'm a tutor. I was tutoring accounting. I'm captain of the netball team. I was literally flying through my degree. I don't think I've ever stumbled. I think my only stumbling block was statistics in first year. And that's when I knew, no, change economics. But accounting, the flight was high up.
Yeah.
So those marks came back, they shook me to the absolute core. Like I just kind of couldn't reconcile how am I getting these marks? Maybe I had an idea of what a failure looks like, but I was like, it can't look like me. Like, how am I getting 40%, 30%, And I really did struggle to come to terms with those marks. And I remember even through CTA, I was so sure that I was not going to make it. I kept calling my dad and telling them, like, listen, guys, take me out of the school because this is not going well and it's not going to end well. It's going to end in tears. But I think my parents, because of my track record, they kind of thought, nah, man, this girl is always doing well. Maybe she's just having a bad or like a little stumbling blocks here and there in the months. But I started developing a lot of anxiety and depression and panic attacks. And to the extent that one time when I was studying with a friend of mine at her apartment, she had asked me a question and we were studying, I think it was management accounting. She asked me a question and I completely blacked out, I couldn't answer the question. And I really started having a physical panic attack. And luckily, my friend, I don't even know why she had this, but maybe she had a condition. She had an oxygen mask and they had to give me oxygen. That's how bad like
Yeah,
my anxiety was.
sure,
It was
sure,
bad,
sure.
Alunga. And so I don't need to tell you, at the end of that year, and I couldn't recover. I really couldn't recover from this identity questioning slash anxiety attacks slash depression slash, and I also did something that was uncommon in that year. I stopped tutoring. I stopped being captain of the netball team. I just stopped netball in total. I
Sure.
stopped going to the gym, like, because I think the anxiety was just crippling for me. And at the end of the year, I couldn't recover. I failed 3 modules out of 4, which is
Mm.
like you fail for real.
Yeah.
And that was my first time I failed an academic year. Like, forget failing tests, but an
Yeah.
academic year,
The
like
whole thing.
the whole thing, I'm like, come on, not even a supplementary? What do you mean? You know? But I failed the whole thing. And I didn't even know how to tell my family. When I got my results, I remember I was at my grandmother's house. I was in a bedroom, and just getting out of that room, I just didn't know how this conversation was going to go. But I stomached the courage to tell them. And I think everybody was a little bit shocked. They didn't know how to receive the information. And I guess to make my parents even more shocked, 2 weeks later, I found out that I'm pregnant. You know, now that's a double whammy. That's a double whammy. They're like, you are, yeah, you are going from failing CTA to what are you doing? What are you busy doing at school?
Yeah.
And that was just a slap to, I guess, feeling so disappointed in myself, disappointing my parents, and also validating that you are a proper failure. You go from diligent, star athlete, a tutor, to going to fail pregnancy at the age of 21. Wow, girl, you have hit the road on your face. And I remember 2019 or 2018, sorry, was a very difficult and demanding year, because that was the year where I decided not to try again. I didn't go back to school or anything. My friends, that some of them failed CTA with me, but they tried again. Others that passed went to go on to do their articles. But for me, I was at home watching crime investigation every day, and my body was changing, and I'm depressed for real. And
Yeah.
it's funny that, like, at 21, you would think the pregnancy would be my biggest regret. Nothing. It was that failure. Like, that failure
Sure.
was heavy. Like, forget that my body is changing, but I was like, how did I fail school? That's how deep my
Mm.
identity was and my academics. And I think it's only after my daughter was born where I really was getting out of this black hole, this dark hole that I had created, because she was born in August of 2018. So for a good 8 months, I've been in the trenches. And so
Mm.
when she was born, I think I had an epiphany that my daughter needs to survive and thrive. I
Mm.
can't just wallow in my depression. I'm also learned enough to know that I can do something about my situation.
Mm.
And also, I didn't want her to grow up with this narrative that, like, when she came into the picture, my life just became a shamble and a shame.
Yo.
So I really just had like a whole conversation with God, like saying, God, help me out of this place. Like, I know I might have disappointed a lot of people. I might have disappointed you too. But if you are really a good God, give me the courage to try again. And I remember I told my dad, please just pay for my fees one more time. I know Monash was very expensive. I know I failed that CTA year dismally. But it doesn't even have to be a Monash. Like, I can do UNISA, distant learning. I've never done distant learning, but I'm willing. I just want to try again. And my dad took a chance on me, paid for my fees, and I started the year 2019 CTA attempt number 2. You know,
Sure.
this time with a 4-month-old baby. Now the
Sure.
circumstances are saying, ma'am, you're not going to make it. But Lesego has decided I am going to make, you
Mm.
know? And that's the posture of getting into 2019, is that decision actually changed my life, because although the days in 2019 were like one of the worst days to date, like, I had a really tough 2019. I had lost a tremendous amount of weight from stress, from
Mm.
breastfeeding, from being a new parent, being 23 at that time when she was born, 22 going on 23 when she was born, and understanding the concept that I need to recover mentally from being a failure, because that's all I was telling myself for the whole of 2018. So it was a mental game, but that decision kept me rooted throughout the year. And by God's grace, I can't even take any pride from this. It was God's grace that got me through that year, because it was a really, really challenging year. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I'd lost weight. I wasn't going out. I'm assimilating to distant learning. I'm learning to figure things out by myself. There's no turn to your neighbor and ask a question. There's no pick up your hand and ask the lecturer. I am my lecturer. I am the student next to me. I am my teacher. I am everything, and a mom at the same time.
Yeah.
And by God's grace, I got through that year. And I was so happy to pass that year that when I started working at one of the big 4 firms, for me, my biggest highlight was actually being around people and realizing that my story is changing, because for the whole of 2019, I was by myself. So when I stepped corporate, I never saw corporate as this very big bad place or this very intimidating place. I was just so happy to see people, man. I came with an energy for days. People were like, "Who's this girl? Why is she so excited? Why is she so happy?"
This is an audit. What's your problem?
What's your problem? And I'm there telling jokes, getting my work done. People were impressed at the speed at which I was grasping concepts, not knowing that I had to study IFRS 15 in 3 hours while my child was taking a nap. You know what I mean? It was things like that gave me an advantage, because I was grasping concepts like this, man, because I was in training the year before. And even with working under time pressure, I knew how to sit in difficult audit rooms, because I had to sit in 2019 by myself and figure things out. So I wasn't intimidated by partners when they asked me questions. I wasn't intimidated by ranking and senior management and all these corporate struggles that people have, because I felt like 2019 was the foundation of my view to corporate. And it became such a defining moment for me that the year that I thought was my biggest failure became my biggest triumph, even up to today. And that's how I managed my corporate journey, where I was able to get good ratings as an audit trainee. I was able to make friends with partners, with managers, with people that were younger than me as well, because remember, I'm 2 years behind. So when I was in first year, my peers, the ones that I studied with, they were in their 3rd year. So there's a certain level of humility that I also had to have to say, my guy, I know I'm in first year, but you and I are the same age, But I never had that. I just kind of embraced the journey that I didn't see myself delayed. I just saw myself on time, and being able to marry being with a younger audience and an older audience and carry the tension of both. And even after I finished my articles, that is still my view on corporate. I feel like because I call myself a disruptor is because I've always walked in a posture of disruption. I mean, I never said this in the CA journey that for me, I grew up in the township, but I always went to a private school. So having that view from a very young age, I've always had 2 conflicting views taking place. I go home to the poorest township, but I go to one of the richest schools in town, and I always had a dual perspective. So this disruptor mentality didn't start when my daughter was born or when I failed. I think God was building on it, and there were certain defining moments, failing CTA, that kind of broke the camel's back and took me off. But yeah, that's my CA journey in a long nutshell.
Okay. So Lesego, there's a lot to break down that I think
A lot.
I have to do this justice by taking them and bringing them to light. So the first thing was, and this was even just to chronicle through your journey, the first thing was the importance of learning to think for yourself.
Sure.
Which is something that happened in a bit of a messy way. You stumbled upon CA. That's what happened to you.
Yep.
I think there is a large there's a culture for us to always do what mom or dad said, always do what the lecturer said, what they say, what he or she says. But what do you think? And it's so important to get to the bottom of that. Otherwise, you're actually going to be, it's going to be harder than it needs to be. I mean, just think back to the biochemical engineering thing. Yeah, think back to that. I mean, if you were so, boom, you couldn't become a biochemical engineer. Now, if you had really been resolute on the decision, if you thought about it, maybe you would have maybe you would have even taken a gap year. I don't know. But economics, you get into economics because someone else told you to get into economics. You go into CA even, obviously God's grace, but you get into CA because your friends are going into CA. And it's just all these moments where it's like, I'm just gonna let the wind take me where it takes me. But learning to think for yourself, it really helps with control. I think there's a lot of stability in just saying, I made this decision because of X, Y, and Z. It was informed. I think another big one is that you weren't adequately informed, like when you picked biochemical engineering. But taking control of your life, a lot of it is learning how to think for yourself. So that's the first thing. The second one is wow, and it was just like, sure, this was heavy for me. Like when you mentioned how the biggest stress on your mind wasn't your child coming in, it was the failure you had experienced, which was like, for me, it raises the environment that we've created, the psychological environment we've created around failure. And I wouldn't put it on anyone. I wouldn't say it's anyone's fault, but that's something that I largely want to rectify, improve with the podcast. Failure is part and parcel with all great things, and it's part and parcel with learning. So if you've never failed, you've probably never learned the lessons you need to learn. And when we have these failures, they shouldn't break us to the point that it broke you. But it did, because I think there's no psychological safety around it. There's definitely home. You're thinking, what are they going to think at home? Because they've always seen me succeed and they praise me for my successes and they scold me for my failures. What are they going to think at school? Everyone thinks if you fail the year, you're a failure. You're useless. You're not meant to be. You don't fit in. If you fail in corporate, you're that outcast. All these environments are creating this psychologically unsafe environment that we really need to create. We need to foster a safer space in. So again, you're doing great work in helping with that. Your story is phenomenal. I think it really does desensitize us to this thing called failure. It's not a taboo. In fact, it's very real, and it'll probably knock on your door during CTA. It'll probably.
Probably that, but if it does, just don't be shocked.
But I think it inevitably will, because even the top student, right, who was getting 80s since first year, will come to CTA and test one, boom, 60. From 80 to 60, that's, yep.
I went 80 to 40. Like, that's even hot.
Yep. But like, even if it's 80 to 60, it's hectic, because now your identity is, I'm an 80 student. I get distinctions. So the moment you don't, who are you? So that's the second one. The third one is the importance of having a purpose to persist. There's a reason, as much as it was God's grace in your view and in a Christian view, there was a reason you got through that year, that 2018, 2019 year. And that was because this kid also needs a future, this kid needs something. And I feel like purpose is the one thing that invariably will make you more resilient. I think when you have a purpose behind anything that's deep, you can probably get through. You know, like the quote goes, when you know why, how becomes easy. Not that it was easy, but it becomes possible. Absolutely possible. And you'll find a way. So the purpose to persist, if you can find that purpose in whatever it is you do, I feel like you're golden. There's two more. There was a lot. This is your fault. This is your
Deeper.
Then the 2019 to 2020 shift. So that was when you got back to corporate. The big lesson that came to my mind is around gratitude. I mean, the way you assumed that opportunity when you got to corporate, the way you were so open, the way you're so hungry, the way you were so, just everything you did was in the furtherance of great things. And it was because you were grateful for the opportunity. Big thing in my mind is this idea that I was thinking about the other day, that gratitude and appreciation is not about, or rather, gratitude is not about appreciation. It's about deprivation. It was because you had that year with no one, that the moment that someone was in the room, it meant everything. It meant, wow, let's be here. Let's be open. Let's be energetic. Let's be enthusiastic, because goodness gracious, the way it was then, this is 1,000 times better now. So operationally, if you feel like you are an ungrateful person, I'm telling you, just abstain. Just take that thing out of your life for a month. You'll see. You'll see just how much it was actually meaning so much to you. If you're a bit of a spoiled person, like sometimes I am, maybe ask your mother, if you live at home, ask your mother to just stop cooking for you for a month. Ooh. You're going to appreciate that lady. Yeah. You're going to love her. So deprivation is the way to appreciation. That was the lesson that I learned there. And the last one, which is the one that you sort of mentioned at the end, is, and I don't know if this is a lesson, but maybe it's just an observation of you. You've been bridging gaps throughout. I mean, now this event that I attended, the networking event that you, the workshop that you did for young professionals, Bridge the Gap. Like, that's just a testament to what you've always been having to do. And it just makes so much sense, where you're from, having to go from poverty to affluence, back and forth. And now you're having to go to the young corporates and the old corporates. And you're also now a student who's actually older than her peers, but now you have to interact with them on a equal level. So it's just always trying to bridge the gap, which I don't know if anyone can take lessons from. Maybe if someone's experienced that, they can see some value in your experience and some solidarity there. But there's just so much I wanted to get into. Now that we've seen the lowest of the lows, there's more to this. There's too much that's happened. What has been the highest of the highs?
Sure. What an interesting question. I think the highest of the high is seeing how magnified God can be in my life through this journey. Because every time I thought I was like rock bottom, certain good things were happening. In that mess, I couldn't understand that. Like, for example, in 2017, when I was going through my failure, that's when I met my husband, right? And he was like a pillar. Like, that guy was, to a point where I didn't even realize that he was the only person that I was vulnerable with at that time. So not even my family or my friends, because with my family and friends, I felt so much shame that I separated myself from them, because I knew that I was not going to meet the expectation of being the diligent scholar. so can't approach them. So this guy at least found me in this tension of both, and it was easier for me to like be myself with him, you know? So he kept me stable in that year, 2017. And I mean, in 2018, when I think my daughter being born, oh my gosh, Alunga, I was just kind of like, kids do something to you, right? And I think it was such a big blessing that she was healthy. There was nothing wrong with my child. Like my child was like the happiest child ever. Needy, very needy because I was always at home. But this child was 100% healthy. It looked like I was literally maybe 14 and pregnant because I had lost so much weight. But this child was big and healthy and happy and laughing, you know?
Sure.
And I remember 2020, for example, was the year COVID hit, you know? And my highlight for COVID hitting was when everybody went into lockdown, guess who was prepared for lockdown? This one. Because I had 2019 by myself the whole time. So working online, being able to show up online, those are my strengths. This is what I'm doing. I was distant learning the year before. Like my guy, I was thriving in 2020. Like the only thing is people can't go out, but even better, I'm an introvert. So I'm like in my zone, in my space. And I guess like this is going highlight to highlight every year. 2021 was actually being able to pass my APC year. And I don't know if you guys know, if you follow the news, APC 2021 was when the laptop stopped working. That's when we started 3 hours later than the original start time. Let me tell you, I did not think I was going to make it that year because granted, I failed CTA. I'm very comfortable with failure, but I'm like, God, this failure I'm not comfortable with. Like, I don't care what's going to happen, but we are going to pass this 8 hours, you know? Highlight for me because when I passed APC, I felt like I knew that I had rewritten the story. It's like I just knew that I have overcome. And nothing was going to intimidate me further than this point because for myself, I didn't think that I would be able to rewrite that narrative of you failed and you were pregnant at 21, 22. That's not common when you step into corporate. You don't find young moms. We are taught that when you are pursuing corporate journeys, get the accolades, get the titles. When you are 35, going on to 40, maybe find a husband and have a child. You know, that's how the language of corporate is. But this was my entry point. This is all I knew. So I was so incredibly proud of myself. And I just knew I'm going to break barriers just by that alone. And I guess if I just fast forward now, 2024, I did something that I was so proud of in that when I decided to become more visible, because I think it's a decision, right? Because sometimes we don't realize that, yes, you can be very fluff on social media or you can just post for just. But I decided to carry my authentic self on a professional platform, LinkedIn, you know? There are future employers there. There are future business partners. I'm busy quoting scripture on a professional platform. I am taking 1 minute, 2 minute videos talking about the lessons that I'm learning. I've never seen this done. There was no strategy, but it was intentionality and authenticity that was brewing in me. And I think the visibility came as a result of how honest and open I was with my journey and with my struggles, that people gravitated towards that. And that gave me the confidence to continue doing things like, for example, Bridge the Gap, going out into schools and going out into disadvantaged schools where I come from in Kanana and tell them about this information that I didn't have, you know, and because I was so not well informed, I wanted to give back. So it's been a tremendous highlight, not just getting into rooms and getting all these speaking engagements, because there's a lot happening in 2024 for me. But I think my biggest thing is how I did it with authenticity. Like when people meet me outside of LinkedIn, I think they love the consistency. They can see that, oh, how are you actually doing it? Like you are so true to self. Like you are so approachable. You are like the girl next door, but you are in corporate. Like how is this making sense? And I'm like, I love that my highlight was that I was able to do that with authenticity. And I pray over that every day, Alunga. I don't take it lightly. I understand that authenticity is a very tricky thing to maintain as a posture all the time. But I pray over that and I say, God, cover me. Whatever happens, whatever opportunities may come, however people may receive or perceive me, may I continue being authentic in every space that I find myself in. But there have been many highlights. I don't want to lie to you. There have been a lot, but those are ones I can think about.
No, these are beautiful highlights. I think they're interestingly, you know how have you heard the quote? Okay, I'll say this other version of the quote, but the simplistic one is the intelligent people learn from their mistakes, the wise learn from mistakes of others. But I think it's so much better when you go through the entire cycle. So this was by the entire ladder. This was by Alex Hormozy. He's a business dude. He said, dumb people never learn from their mistakes. Less dumb people learn from their mistakes after 100 times. Smart people learn from their mistakes once. Very smart people learn from their mistakes multiple times. Wise people learn from the mistakes of others. And the wisest learn from their successes too. I think you can learn a lot from your highs. You can learn a lot about, in your case, your faith. You can learn a lot about, in your case, authenticity. You can learn a lot about the things that you need to double down on. So, two things I want to get into with you. The first one being authenticity. Firstly, how does one go about pursuing it? Because it's not easy. It's not easy to be yourself. But I can even attest to, firstly, just how beneficial authenticity is. Like in 2024, the number one differentiation strategy for a personal brand is authenticity. It's being yourself. So there's a benefit for you. But how does one maybe even ease into it, into that whole idea of being authentic? Do you have any tips there? And the second one, we'll get into the second one. Let's start with this.
Sure. With this one, I think there are clues to authenticity, right? I think the things that make me stand out today are the things that I like least about me, you know?
Sure.
And I think it's because of the fact that sometimes we naturally know what we are comfortable doing and being, but we spend a lot of time thinking, what are people going to say? How are people going to perceive me? We place other people's opinions, perceptions over ours. And so even if we have a natural trait that we are good at, we make it less than because of the weight that we have placed on other people's voices. So I think for me, if you would really like to explore authenticity, is the time work that you're going to have to do, right? You have to sit and say, outside the noise, when I am not with people, naturally, what do I do? Who am I? I say a lot of jokes when I'm with my husband or with my family. Like, they know me as this person that's like a ray of sunshine and the person that's always going to look at the glass half full. Like, Alunga, I will find the light in every dark place, you know? And sometimes that made me question myself when I was in corporate, because when you are in a boardroom, for example, and it's that order deadline and things are looking dire and people are kind of gathering together over how bad situations are, I'm looking for the light, you know, and I'm scared that I might be that person that finds the light because I don't want to be like singled out, you know, but I'm really looking for the light. I'm about to say a joke right now and I know you guys can't take it, but I have to, you know. So I think it's that. It's like there are clues to the things that make us authentic. And I think that courage aspect that goes hand in hand with authenticity, that the people that are authentic, it takes courage to be authentic. It's not easy. That's why people can't do it, you know, because you have to call yourself out of your name. I have to constantly reaffirm and validate myself more than I have to hear it. I can't hear it from other people, and I can't put that responsibility on other people. I genuinely have to keep reaffirming myself that, Lesego, I am a solution. Therefore, I have value. That's my personal statement that I say to myself. I am a solution. Therefore, I have value. So it's who I am. Who have I become before I have? So before people have a perception of me, before people have a view of me, I need to know I am a solution. I need to know that in those rooms, in those spaces where people are going to feel some level of tension, it is my light that is going to give the value. It is the light that I carry that is going to make people feel liberated. And it takes courage to continuously do that. And it's not like you do it once and you're done. It's a consistent work. It's a self-improvement. It's called self-development because it is an ever-learning process, ever-growing process, because different experiences also introduce different aspects of who you are, And sometimes you're not being tested enough in your spaces. I always say when you are overly comfortable, you might be in dangerous territories, right? Like you might want to start moving and changing the groups or the people that you spend time with or the rooms that you find yourself in. But there's a certain level of discomfort that you should be able to bear. And that's why I'm saying the clues to authenticity, the biggest one is really just looking at what do I not like about myself and why, and also accepting that that is going to be your key trait. I mean, I'm a CA, there's many other CAs, but it's not that the similarities of a CA are going to make me stand out. It's actually what makes me different. It's my uniqueness. It's my value proposition. Like, why am I different from the next CA? Is because I am authentic, and it's because I am authentic in this way, And I think everyone has that opportunity to be authentic in a way. It's just that sometimes we play it down too much, that we numb it, and we don't realize that we're falling under the trap of just trying to be too similar or just trying to be like the next person. Like, I don't think we'll ever make any traction or really fully appreciate authenticity when we're all trying to look like each other, sound like each other, be like each other, go out with the same type of people. Like, it's just like insanity, if I can call it like that. But yeah.
The big thing that I'm learning from you right now is the big observation that I'm realizing is you don't find yourself in comfort. Authenticity is found on the fringes. It's found in that zone where you don't exactly know. It's found in the struggle, in the adversity. So truth be told, you're actually not going to find yourself until you put yourself out there, until you go and do things that show you who you are. Because also character building is, you can't do it in a couch in the suburb where you're just sitting and you're not doing. And so I feel like to find your authenticity, you need to find the difficulties that you... Because I don't know if you need to go as far as what you've experienced. Like, God said, authenticity, here we come. You don't need to go that far. I think you just need to find difficulties that you can bear, and you'll find more or less who you are. Because I think it's in those down moments that you realize that, hey, I'm actually funny when everyone's like in despair. It's those moments that really show you also where you're valuable, right? So if everything's fine and you're making jokes, it's less clear as to the value you bring. But when everything's dark and just and full of despair, that's where the light shines, where the enthusiasm and the energy, it's like nectar in a drought, type of thing. So that was the first one. The second one, I actually wanted to go back to that 2021 laptop situation, because I actually haven't done like a historical account. So now I'm speaking to one of the
The product
Victory.
of APC 2021.
So please actually walk us through what happened there. What was this whole situation like? What was your experience and the experience of the people close to you?
Guys, it started like any other APC exam, you know? You wake up early, you are taught that, you know what, pack your bag the night before. Obviously, you've gone through the pre-release period. You've gone through the moment of zenning, of surrendering and saying, God, okay, whatever happens tomorrow, you know, I've got this. Keyword, whatever happens tomorrow. Those words. Because whatever happened, happened. Huh? So you get there. Obviously, you go to Gallagher. You arrive early. If you are like really serious, you arrive super early. I got there at 6, I think it was 6:30. You start writing at 9. And the idea is when we go to Gallagher, obviously there's thousands of us coming there. So the earlier you get there, the better, so that you can park your car, so that you're not stuck in traffic. You're avoiding stress. You know, I did everything right, guys. I prayed. I did everything right. I packed my lunch the night before. I did my prayer sessions. You know, I took my bag, my books, everything. We got to the venue. It was a normal day. You stand in the lines because you're trying to figure out which block am I writing. They group us in surnames, you know, you're like, okay, I'm writing in that section. Bye, good luck, you know, any other day. You get in the exam room, any other exam, you sit down. Now, one thing that I should say, Saika has never given laptops for people to write. So even though the technical way of writing through a laptop was very new, people were writing with their own laptops. But somebody had an amazing idea that in 2021, we are all going to get laptops sponsored by Saika, you know? And it
Yeah.
was
Oh.
very new. And it was like, wow, that's great also. It's sponsored by Saika. Yes. You know, you sit down, you sit down, and the laptops go on, and then hang on. Problem number one, the Wi-Fi is a bit of an issue. You're like, okay, we are in Gallagher. Now, if you've never been to Gallagher, Gallagher is massive. Gallagher is massive. I think there's over 3,000 people writing that day. And there was something they got taking with the Wi-Fi. And there was like a little bit of rumors here and there because you're sitting in your chair. Remember, it's a normal other exam. You're sitting in your chair and you're hearing rumors that there's only two routers. Two routers in the exam room for 1.5 people in this section and 1.5? Like what? Okay. Then some laptops are not starting. Some laptops are blue. My laptop did not start at all. And so we were meant to start at 9. 9 became 9:30. 9:30 became 10. 10 became 10:30. 10:30 became 11. Now at this time, let me tell you, I am preaching in my mind. I'm quoting scripture. There's a girl next to me who's legit having a panic attack. There are people walking around stressed out of their mind. Invigilators are running around. Alunga, it's World War III. Like it's a problem. You know what I mean? But I have the peace of God because I said, God, whatever happens, I'm a this. You know, it is literally unbelievable. You just have to be there to know what I'm saying. If people were in that sitting, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It is the most difficult thing to describe because it was unbelievable as it's happening. Because this is a national exam by Saika, the last one, you know. And so I think the reality versus the magnitude that this is our last board exam, it's 8 hours. Some people are having panic attacks. Some people are sleeping. Some people are crying. Some people are going through the absolute most. And eventually we wrote at, I think we started at 10 past 11. And I don't need to tell you, it's not that they cut the 8 hours in half. if you start an 8-hour exam at 11:10, can you imagine what time you're going to finish? You know? And halfway through the exam, some laptops stop working. Some people have to go from typing to write. It was an absolute movie. Some people, their laptop stopped working halfway through the exam. Then they had to go to the writing method. Some people are crying during the exam because it's like this and not. There's so much movement during the exam that it's laughable. Like, it's like, and the best part, we had to wear masks. It's COVID. It's 2020. Yeah. Alunga. Yo. I've never seen anything like that in my life. You know, eventually we finished. At 7. Let's not say all. Some people finish at 7. Some people finish at 8 because some laptops froze during while we writing. Some laptops are working. Some laptops at the end of the exam crashed. Like the end of the exam crashed. Never seen. Like, Alunga, we are working professionals. We are working professionals. Like, people are working professionals responsive. Like, they're not fighting like, can't believe this happened. Like, people are filled with anger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people are leaving the venue. Some people started later. So I was part of the portion that started at quarter past 11 or 11:10. Some people started at 12 or 1. So there are some people that are still within the 8 hours while other people are leaving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I had to upload and check, because an invigilator is walking down the corridors with the iPad, you know, and they keep checking whether it's submitted or not. Some are getting submitted, some aren't. Mine took an hour to upload. Eventually, it's supposed to show a tick that it uploaded. Mine never showed a tick. And I was like, God, whatever happens, whatever happens. And I left that venue because I'm like, I've been sitting here for an hour after an exam. It's 8 o'clock in the evening. Alunga, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. I've been at Gallagher since 6:30 a.m. It's 8 p.m. Some people are literally crying, calling their family, calling their parents. Like, it's going out into the news, you know, it's becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And I heard the latest people to leave the venue Gallagher was like 11 p.m. Some people can correct me if I'm wrong. I think other people left midnight, but some people left at 11 p.m. I remember I left at 8:30, and also because there's so many cars navigating that traffic. So I got home at 10 p.m. and I kid you not, I was visibly shook. But I just was like, God, I have surrendered everything. This was out of my control. Granted, if I fail, I know why I failed CTA. I was never sure about the journey, but APC, can it really be me? Like, was it really my fault if I fail?
Yeah.
Trying to understand. I'm like, surely it cannot be me. Like, if I fail, like, God, this lesson, I don't know if I'll take this failure correctly if I do fail. Like, what am I going to can't fix the issues that went wrong? There were too many issues that went wrong. But yeah, that's APC 2021.
Yeah.
1 November.
What an
2021.
interesting time, hey?
It was a movie. It was an absolute movie.
Like, so I guess the lesson, if let's say you didn't come out.
Conclude. What did you get from this? I want to hear.
Here's the thing, man. Firstly, you've got to do your part, which you did. There were definitely people who didn't do their part, you know, maybe came 2 minutes before beginning, and there's definitely those cases, but you must also do your part in any given scenario. The second is that institutions are not foolproof. They are not these, because I think especially in South Africa, they're not these perfect and completely established things that can never go wrong. I think we have this idea that employment is absolute safety. That's not
Mm,
true. Institutions can also go bust like this.
mm,
They have problems, like I wrote about this the other day, but there's this idea that I was thinking about of how we give so much power to the institution, forgetting that it's made up by people. And so
yeah,
when we forget that you actually, as an employee, if you just go behind the curtain, they talk about piercing the corporate veil. Now you're behind the corporate veil, but you must understand that, like, you are in. So
yeah,
go, just quickly take off the veil, see
yeah,
what's there. You'll see that this budget, although there's a budget, is not completely set in stone. You can't touch it. Manager
yeah,
said, no, you can see beyond the budget. You can
yeah,
read between the line items. You've got to see more than just these structures. Although obviously framework structures, mental models, they help, there is an element of just, hey, dude, see beyond, be a little bit more creative. So I guess the gist of that lesson is just to understand that corporations are not foolproof.
sure.
There are gaps and cracks, and that's where your opportunities can lie as well. Solve the problem. And
Yeah.
like, let's say you know a guy who has laptops. Time to quickly come through with your laptops, type of thing for the
That
day.
laptop situation, they quickly went back. They knew that was where they went wrong. Let me tell you, in 2022, they were back to use your own laptop.
Look, and also we also have to. I need to do more interviews of CAs who qualified either 2022 or 23 because, yeah,
Yeah.
man, there's some journalism that's required to, some therapy, yeah, and I'm sure people are, yeah, they're reeling from that. And you must remind me to take you with me so that you can tell the story because, yeah.
I need
Uh,
to. I need to.
then the next one is, I remember you've spoken about this whole idea of adulting. I don't know if you feel
Mm.
like it yet, like you're actually doing it.
Will
I
I
just
ever
wanted
do
to.
it? Will I ever do it? My circumstance say full mature adult. Do
uh,
I see it like that? I don't know. I don't think so.
what would you say though has changed and what hasn't? Because there's the feeling that you're not, because I think also in varsity we thought when we're coming into varsity that you're going to be this adult, but then like your lecturers kind of do plan a lot for you. It's not completely, like lecturers, they give you a schedule. If you follow it, yeah, there's an element of independence. They're not going to tell you come to the lecture, but like it's not there. But then you become an adult and it sounds like it's the same. What has changed? What hasn't changed?
Sure. What hasn't changed? I feel like because you still feel deceived. Like, I can't believe I've done so much and I have so many things that say I'm an adult, but I don't feel like I've arrived. I still
Uh,
feel like I'm still a kid at heart, or I'm still like have a sense of youth in me. And I guess maybe the idea of what an adult was is maybe based on what we saw on TV or how our parents were. And when you start to realize that everyone is still figuring it out,
okay.
and maybe our idea of an adult is somebody that has it figured out, and I think that's maybe the biggest thing. When obviously we were in high school and we saw people in university, we were like, wow, they get to drive, they get to go out, they get to go to class when they want to. And then when you're in varsity and you see people that work, you're like, yo, they don't even come to class. They go out. Then you get to the workplace, you report to your boss, you don't do certain things. And then you see other people that are doing more things and you're like, oh my gosh, they get to make decisions about a group of
Mm,
people. They get
mm,
to do things that they want because they are in an executive level. They get to not come into the office. So it's always this mindset that maybe when you get there, you realize that you still don't have it figured out.
mm,
And that deception that I think people sometimes believe, creates this pressure that when they do become adults, inverted commas, adults, they feel unworthy. They feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure because I haven't succeeded at XYZ. Maybe I'm 30 and I don't have a car and I'm not married and etc. Or maybe you're in varsity and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in varsity. I still don't have a car. I still don't go out. I still don't do these other weird things. So we all fall under this realization that, hang on, I know I'm married. I know I have a child, but I'm still figuring it out. Like I'm still realizing that I've never actually been married for what now is going to be like 6 years. I've never actually been married 6 years. So I don't know what a 6 year marriage is like. If I look at my daughter's 6 years, I still don't know what it's like to be a mother to a 6-year-old. When I start working, I'm just kind of like, oh, wow, I still don't know what it's like to host an event, and like feed people. So I think it's that deception that kind of carries into every season of our life. And I think sometimes we need to start invalidating those perceptions that we once had and letting go of them because they may not be true. It was like our limited view of life, our lived experiences, and now we need to start redefining what does adulthood really mean? Yes, I'm responsible. Yes, I take care of myself and my family. Yes, I get to wake up when I don't want to, but being an adult comes with a certain level of maturity, not doing something even though you can do it. That's an adult, showing up at work even though you don't want to. That's being an adult. Doing your work even though no one is actively checking that you're doing your work. That's making an adult decision. It's in the small things that really differentiate children from adults, because children just do what they want to do, whether it's dangerous or not, whether they understand the consequences or not, whether they are safe or not. But what makes us adults is because we've assessed the situation and we've decided on a better option, on a more mature option. So I really do feel like even that's why people, when they are getting older, they're like, yo, but I feel younger. It's because they're realizing this notion that, oh, wow, I still have a lot to figure out. And I still feel like the more I let go of those ideals, the younger I feel, because I'm like, oh, I still can. Oh, I can. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like the only difference is more responsibility and more obligations. That's all I really see.
Bills,
Like,
bills, 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 bills.
like that's about it. But I think those things, they sort of filter down. So when you have more responsibility, you have to be more mature. When you have more responsibility, you have to do more of the things that you don't necessarily want to do but have to do. When you have more responsibility, you have to make sure that you manage yourself. No one's going to manage you. And I feel like you need to actually see yourself as an adult, like the moment that you enter quote unquote adulthood. Let's call it 21, because first year, it's live.
I think it's
Second year, it's
25.
live.
Don't judge me. I think it's 25.
You think it's
Let
25?
me think it's 25. I don't know. Something happens at 25. And I just want to tell you 25. There's something that happens at that age. But I think 21, I think maybe because we've also accepted the social norms. Like in America, they call you an adult at 21, right? In South Africa, you're 18. But honestly, my God.
Nah.
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 Fight me. When you get to 25, let's talk. It's like, when
I
you
do
get
hear you.
25, let's talk.
No,
You'll see
I
what
do
I
hear you. No,
You'll see what
I
I
hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, hey, 19-year-olds. Those guys, I
You'll
didn't
see
know
what I
nothing at 19.
That's what I'm saying. It's not that I'm gonna fight. It's not even. It's like, you know what? Let's have this conversation when you turn 25, and then we'll come back. We'll come back.
Let's get on to, and I remember you spoke about financial contentment, because I think this also really links up to this whole idea that we have, this idealistic idea of our career and adulting, and I want to have a car And a mortgage, nah, guys, you don't want a mortgage.
Don't
But
want.
but it'll all come. It'll come. Um,
You do not want a mortgage.
when like, what was your view on the whole financial thing, money, back in school when you were a student versus now?
Sure. I think when I was in school, maybe it's upbringing as well, lived experiences, that money is something that needed to show on your immediate person, with with things, with material things, with also how you went to certain spaces, you know. So in as much as I understood that it gave access, it was a flawed view of what that access was like,
Yeah, yeah.
and I wanted to go in certain spaces. I wanted to have certain things because that's what I knew money's supposed to do. Now that I'm an adult, I realize that if truly you don't place value on these things, you might have them and they mean absolutely nothing. You know,
Mhm.
you might have the house, the car, the clothes, I suppose. I'm just going to chase on stuff. Um,
Yeah, talking
you may
money.
have.
Hey, you are a son, you are a city girl. I can see.
It may have all these other things, but if you don't place value on them, they mean absolutely nothing. And now you start questioning, why then did I want money? Because I think we are all craving for fulfillment, even though we don't have the language to describe that's what we want. Because
Mm,
we thought if I could get this car, I would feel some type of way. If I had
mm,
these clothes, I would like have this type of view of myself. So
mm,
the underlying of that is actually wanting fulfillment and wanting a sense of peace. And I think sometimes we confuse financial contentment and financial success because even though they are both good things, they are driven by different things.
mm,
And I think for me, I've gotten to a point where I want financial fulfillment and I want financial contentment because of what I'm seeking, the underlying. I want the peace. So even if I had to live in an apartment or a small house or not drive the fanciest car or not even have the fanciest clothes, I have peace because I have all these experiences. I have a sense of security in myself when I sleep. Whereas if
mm,
I really wanted a lot of money, I knew what the cost of a lot of money was. Unfortunately, this is not always the case, but we are fed this narrative that you need to work more hours, you need to do more for money. And I'm gradually learning, yes, money is a measure of value. And if you don't get to a point where you ask yourself, what value am I bringing? Because somebody once said that the proportionate of what value you're bringing is how much money you're going to get. You know what I mean? So
mm,
you go to work for 8 hours, which is a lot of time, but you are doing a standard thing. That's why you're getting a
mm,
salary. No
mm,
matter whether you do more or less, you're going to get that standard salary. If you are a CEO and you are making those executive decisions that are going to affect not just yourself, but multiple people and even the economy, then that is adding a lot of value. Hence, you are getting your
mm,
millions. You know what I
mm,
mean?
mm,
So I think you can have a lot of money and still be fulfilled, but that financial contentment is that
mm.
that peace. It's that I am comfortable with what I have and I'm happy with what I have. And whether in monetary value it's a lot or a little, that undertone of peace is what people are seeking.
Mm. I actually I read this interesting paper. It was a US study, and they found that the point of diminishing returns, so the point at which your efforts actually yield less satisfaction. So this was actually a study on one of the observations was on the impact of financial success on your emotional well-being. Yeah, quick sip, quick quick like a sip.
It's like I said,
Mm.
Dango Saika.
Got this at
Next time the
the
podcast will
Bridge the
be,
Gap
next time
event,
you'll
guys.
see like podcast sponsored by SAC.
So it was a study on the impact of wasn't the point of the study. I think it was a study on evaluating the correlations between like how we evaluate our lives on a holistic level, so like education, income, etc., all things, versus emotional well-being, which is genuinely how
Yeah.
you feel, your fulfillment,
Yeah.
the inner workings. So they found that the number at which you get less fulfillment for the money you make is $75,000, and I did the math. It's about 2 million rands. So, and that's about 160,000 rands a month. Yeah.
That's what I
So
need. I think I agree with that stat.
you can sort of
You with that stat. I think I kind of see it right now.
so I said 2 million because that's before tax. So if you're grossing 2 million, and then I use the highest tax table for individuals. So like this isn't even if you're ethically avoiding as much tax as you possibly can, but with 2 million you get down to about 1.3 after tax, which is that's basically the happiness number. That's $75,000, the maximum happiness number. So like if guys you know you're not in it for just money, if you know you're not in it for like that, ambitious success thing, if you're in it for financial contentment, probably 1.3, which is like 110 after tax per month, it'll do a good job for you. 1.120-ish. If you have like a goal, a good like 100K is probably gonna serve you well. And before we move on to the next thought, I just wanted to mention an idea that came to my mind so financial contentment for me is sort of like that's often the general goal for people, but they don't know it because that's where you can find fulfillment and you can live a secure life. That's contentment. The level above that is success, which is where guys like CAs often fall, sometimes to their detriment, sometimes to their favor. And that's where, you've got, in some cases, these golden handcuffs where now you're the FD. So you're making the great money, but you're successful. You just lack in fulfillment. You lack in freedoms. You lack in maybe some of the things that you thought you didn't know you valued, but you actually do. Like time and location. You want to travel, but you can't travel if you're the CEO of a listed company. It's so tough, man. You got to stay here. Unless we're going to have a board meeting in London, you're going to be here in the office, chief. But then the level beyond that is financial freedom. And that is where, you can have a business that gives you that money, that gives you financial contentment, as well as financial success. But you also have time and you have location freedom. You can go where you want, whenever you want, kind of thing. So yeah, just as a sort of mental model for people
I love that.
looking at what level do I want? Do I want contentment? Do I want success? Do I want freedom? In my mind, I'm like sort of in success because I think, I guess I'll call it freedom because I don't really believe I work for money. I believe money is like a byproduct of the things I want. Like I have to have money to make the change I want and have the impact I want.
I think people all want financial freedom. The reality is not a lot of us are going to attain it. And now you need to ask yourself, what is the average of people? What average are people getting, right? And we all are in the pursuit of financial success if we go with our own desires. But some people just get to financial contentment. And I always tell people it's not settling. It's actually accepting this is the level that is giving me fulfillment. Because when you are fulfilled, it's not even about a numbers game anymore. You know what I mean? Like I have peace of mind. I can go out with my family. I can still like satisfy my needs. Yes, there's certain things that I want, but I'm not driven by my desires. Like I'm not loosely just swayed it by, oh, there's a Louis Vuitton store. Let me get a bag quickly. That's going to take me out of that financial contentment and put me back to the success where those golden cuffs are there again. Do I want to live in bondage? I don't think so. For a season, yes, I probably can. But do I want my life to be like that? No. But we all want financial freedom. And there's certain seasons where those things are going to take the forefront. But the reality is, not all of us or majority of us are not going to reach that financial freedom, even though it is a genuine, real desire. I don't think anyone will ever say, do you not want to be financially free? Of course, we all want to be. Are we going to be? I think there's so many factors that play a role in that. Our limiting beliefs, our disciplines, our ideas, us not believing in ourselves, our lack of courage. There's just so much. Like, this can become another podcast. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying that the
It will.
reality,
You'll come back just now. Don't worry.
I will come back. The reality is, I've decided that financial contentment is that average for me. And at any point in time, I can go for financial success. But the benchmark for me is financial contentment.
No. I think this is a really valuable idea. Guys, take it, take from it what you will. Very interesting that you mentioned that you would get into, that financial success mode. Haven't you been? Because I actually want to pivot now into that move from a managerial role into now the role that you're in. You even mentioned it as one of your greatest achievements. Why did you move out of that traditional corporate into this job?
I think because I did want financial contentment. I knew I was not willing to pay the cost to financial success. One thing that people don't realize is certain biblical principles are true. You reap what you sow. I wasn't ready to reap the things for financial success. I just didn't want to. You know what I mean? You can be not ready for it. It's not that I wasn't ready. I was more than ready. I was more than capable. It's not even a question of can she or can't she. I knew I could. I just didn't want to, And it was like, I always know that I can locate financial success, and that's a given, right? If I understand where the location is, at any point in time, like I said, I can tap into that ring and step into that ring again. So I also needed to take away the pressure of what titles do to people. They kind of shift how you view life. I think other people lead their lives with titles. Like, you find out, oh, I'm a manager at a big four firm, You start believing in that and weighing that, and you become a manager at a big four firm, even in the grocery store, when it's not necessary. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you are at home, you are at home now. Why are you a manager at a big four firm at home? Do you know what I mean? And some people really believe in the title so much so that they don't know that it's not you. Like, that is your position at work, but it's not who you are. Don't wear that as this is who I am. And I wanted to cement that understanding to me. I'm such a I guess a learner that likes going through experiences. Yes, I understand. I love mentorship. Please don't get me wrong. I really believe in learning from other people's mistakes. But the true lessons for me are through experience, and through like going through the fire. And I knew that at the very early stage of my career, I'm going to liberate myself from titles. I'm going to leave a manager role and go to an unconventional role that people look down on, offshoring space. Oh my gosh, you are a glorified trainee, and get the financial contentment and get the peace of mind and understand that even when I am a person, I can still build, I can still network, I can still grow my platforms, I can still collaborate with Saika. Imagine, I'm doing this as a glorified trainee and I'm not doing this in my capacity as a manager at a big four, I'm doing this as Lesego the person. And it gives me even more courage to know that a title does not define me. It's a position at a space at work, but it doesn't mean I carry that position as my calling.
Big keyword, trade-offs. I think we have to do the the hard analysis of
Mm.
cost versus benefit, of risk versus reward, and I think just of values versus beliefs. Because there's
Yeah.
this idea that was posed by Adam Grant. He's a big social psychologist in the U.S. He's at Wharton, University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton Business School, and he said this on a podcast with Trevor Noah. He spoke of this idea of beliefs versus values, and not being rooted in this idea of beliefs, but rather in your values. Ask yourself not what you believe, but what you value. So in this case, it's not asking yourself, sort of, let's say I believe that, um, I believe that family is important, right? This gets maybe a little bit like, whoa. Don't think about it like that. Think about it more of, what do you value in family? Because
Mm.
family being important gets sort of the plot messed up. Truth be
Sure.
told, if you ask one person, it's actually that I value loyalty, and
Mm.
that's what they see in their family. But I was even talking to one of my friends the other day that that's not necessarily the case in his family. He more values the support that that family gives. So there's actual things. Maybe you value belonging, you value having a place, and it's so important to ask at these critical stages, like when you're
Sure.
about to take up a managerial role, what are my values, and are my values being furthered here? Am I getting that fulfillment that I will get from this role? Yes or no? Do your analysis, do your cost benefit. But as you said as well, only time will tell. I think
Mm.
experience is the only teacher in such an
Mm.
instance, because
Mm.
you won't really know, like for an example, that you you won't really know what you value about your children until you have them. There's a good
Yep.
example. Yeah.
Perfect. Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Learning, growth, contribution. You did that event, Bridge the Gap. It was fantastic. It was a workshop. Guys, the next one next year, you have to come. But
Oh,
bro,
pressure, pressure,
bro,
pressure.
it's coming. It's coming. That thing, I'm telling you, that thing is amazing. But guys, that's not that's not relevant right now. You even gave me this one insight that I think is so profound, which I'm just gonna share before we get into what learning, growth, and contribution is. And you
Yeah.
said at the beginning, I think one thing you've learned is that when you plant a seed,
Mm.
whether you like it or not, no matter what, it's gonna grow.
Mm.
And I was
Yep.
like thinking about that. That was like such a profound line for me. Like think about, and literally now I've added it as like a journal prompt. Every week I ask myself, what seeds have you planted? Because think
Sure.
about all the seeds in your life,
Mm.
relationships. You met that one person that one time. You had that one interview that one time. You you read that one book. These are all seeds you're planting. And
Mm.
the longer or the more seeds you plant, and as time passes, the more growth you'll have. Like, no matter what, when you read that book years ago, I think I remember Vin Zhang. He's a communication coach. He spoke. His father spoke of books being like soldiers in his army. I think the element of that that's missing is that those soldiers are getting stronger, and those soldiers are
Mm.
getting smarter, and they're becoming
Sure.
even more skilled. Which, in the case of this, your tree is growing, your plant is
Mm.
growing, which was such a
Mm.
profound thought that I got from that event. Guys, you see, it was worth it. It was bloody
Yes.
worth it. What is it? And tell us about learning, growth, and contribution.
Sure, learning growth and contribution, my baby that's actually like becoming a toddler, that's going
Hey,
to become into this full grown adult.
hey.
I had this idea because of like lack of information and also stumbling in the CSA journey that I kind of knew where I went wrong, you know, and I knew that it can't just be me. I was like, nah, you're not that special to make all these mistakes by yourself. Like certain people are making these same mistakes. So I started first on YouTube where I started sharing my journey of CASA and also like the struggles that I found myself like landing in. And then eventually I told myself, you know what? on my YouTube channel, I'm going to focus on my CSA journey, but I'm also going to expand on my LinkedIn, where I started tapping into a more professional platform. Then my Instagram obviously was like my personal space. So I was like, hang on, I don't want to confuse my personal space with what I'm trying to achieve by giving people access to information. So I created a page on Instagram called Learning, Growth, and Contribution. Again, you will know from my stories, Alunga, that I unravel a lot, you know. Sometimes I start with an idea and then it just unravels. This is how it came up. So I separated my Instagram and I started seeing a theme when I look back, because I think I'm very ordered, but without realizing it. And I think maybe it's because of disciplines that even my mistakes seem very ordered. So they were like themes that were happening on my LinkedIn, on my YouTube, on my Instagram page. And I knew that with the feedback that I was getting a lot of questions from aspiring CAs, from people that are qualified, from people that are even students asking, how do I better manage my emotional state of mind? How does it feel working in a big four firm? Can you give me any advice when I want to change my degree because you studied economics and then you went to accounting? How are you doing this corporate thing as a mom, you know? And I knew that, like, I'm not gatekeeping, I want to say information that can really like be so deep that it can't be shared. I knew I could share it, but I'm not an online presence type of person. I grew up kokanana. I grew up with a lot of family. If somebody needed help, you actively help them. Don't just say the word and hope for the best. You went out to their homes, you bought the groceries, you helped them carry the bags, you did the things. So I wanted to go offline and actually say, I've heard the questions. This is my idea of what the questions are like. And these are the gaps that I hear people are like struggling with. And I'm trying to bridge those gaps. And that's the name, hence Bridge the Gap. And when I went offline with it, it's exactly what I do online, but it was more structured, more detailed, more thought through, more secured. I wanted to create a psychological safety for people because I knew that the pivotal moments where I had breakthroughs was because I had psychological safety. I had a support structure. There were people that were on similar journeys, but I felt like I could be myself. And I wanted to create that in my event and say, I understand that we may all come from different walks in life, but we're all going to have to enter the workplace. We are all going to have to manage the workplace. We are all going to have to advance in the workplace. And there are different tools that are available. You might not be aware of them, but here's a tool or two, you know, here's somebody that can teach it better. I mean, everything that was mentioned by the speakers were things that I could present, but I also didn't want to make me seem like I'm that unique when I'm speaking by myself. Here are other people that are also on this journey, and this is their perspective. And they are also saying what I'm saying, but they are probably doing it in their view, their lived experience, their experience, you know? And so that's what learning, growth, and contribution embodies. It is really a safe place where I want people to have access to information and know that there are tools and resources available. There are people that can pour into their lives. I would love to go and work more on a mentorship program, a coaching program, a tutoring program. Those are all things in the pipeline. But I think like any child, any purposeful person, there's an inception stage. We all come into this world as babies. Then we become toddlers. Then we become teenagers. Then we become fully fledged adults. Then we are thriving. That's the vision for my learning, growth, and contribution. Hence, I'm not going ahead of it. It's like I said, a baby that's becoming a toddler. Before you know it, they're going to be a teenager, an adult. And there's learnings there. You know, I really believe in feedback. You know, I never think that my ideas are so great that I just do them. It's because of the feedback that I got the courage to do learning, growth, and contribution and do bridge the gap, you know, hearing what people are struggling with that help birth the different stages that it's going to become. So I'm really open to feedback. So if people were at Bridge the Gap, like I said, any amount of feedback was so amazing. I could see the posts on LinkedIn, on Instagram. People still talk about it. Like even
Yeah.
with the standing caps, with the psycho standing caps, with you talking about the scenes and what you took from it. I think it's so beautiful because that's what I want. Give people access to information in such a way that they have enough psychological safety for it to land and to stay. Can still put it in your journal and say, what seeds have I planted? Because you felt safe enough to receive that information. So yeah, man, there's a lot I would love to do with it. And from my lips to God's ears, it's going to be much bigger than I anticipate. And I'm open to a lot of partnership. And I understand that this is a collaborative effort. It's not a one-sided idea. I think any great thing needs a lot of input and it takes a lot of time, a lot of constructive feedback. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what it's going to become.
It is amazing. I mean, that insight was one of many, I must say. I literally did a whole post of like some of my top lessons. I have a lot. I've got like probably like 30 little
Sure.
like important lessons. I can even name a few. One of them is, in order to grow, you need to pay, not just with your time, but with your money, with your wallet. Like, especially being a student, it's hard to like think about paying for something that's not food or alcohol. Unfortunately, in some cases, like if it's nothing that's normal or just immediate, then why pay for it? But the amount of connection and the amount of learning, and I say connection as in networking because that's all networking is. It's immense behind paywalls. It's immense behind that little entrance fee that probably covers costs. I mean, this was one of the perks of coming to the event, which is an amazing Stanley style cup.
Yeah.
Also met this guy. Can you see? This is a bit of a. This is who I
Yes, we
am.
can.
It spoke to me. The sticker that he gave me. It was like, yeah.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
CA Hub, Muhammad Ismail Bulbulia. I met such interesting people. So many more people, and it's like that $650 is nothing, to be honest, for the future growth. I actually wanted to zoom out on this whole concept of learning, growth, and contribution in terms of the fact that I was doing some interesting reading on Africa, and it's so crazy, and it's something that we need to really think about and mull on. That this was another thing I learned at the event. Your COO, he spoke there, and he mentioned how Africa's got the youngest population, and we are the talent that the world is to poach, that they want to poach. All these Europeans, all these Westerners, they're very old. They are nearing retirement, and they're getting increasingly old, and fertility rates are going down. So there's population decline there. But yeah, not to get into the details. The gist of it is stuff like learning, growth, and contribution is like invaluable. It's vital because as our young population is growing, we need more mentorship. We need more education. We need more learning, growth, and contribution. We literally need more of these. And there's also such great commercial opportunity in these spaces. Like if you have guys dreams of getting into education and self-development, personal development, and just general improvement of lives, I promise you it's a huge industry. Africa's got the youngest population. So as we are also getting more digitally enabled, as our digital infrastructure is improving, our educational talents and infrastructure needs to improve. And that means you, if you want to get into education, if you want to start teaching people skills and starting stuff like what Lesego is starting in learning, growth, and contribution, do it. There is huge demand for it in the future. It's coming. I mean, education is one of those industries that are just they're involatile. Everyone needs education. But yeah, I just wanted to also just stress that what you're doing is a lot of what we need. So keep doing it.
I appreciate that. It's encouraging. And I think people don't realize the amount of self-affirmation that has to take place, because you need to see value in what you're doing. And you need to understand that it's bigger than you, you know? And I think we live in a world where if it's not about us, then is it worthy, you know? And selfless work, I think, takes more effort because you constantly need to die to self. You constantly need to remind yourself that, like, there are people that might need this information more than I need it. There are families that are going to be liberated by one CASA in the family. There is a generation that's going to be unlocked by somebody just hearing something or having access to a certain resource that they wouldn't readily have available. So I really do appreciate it. I don't take it lightly. And like I said, it's dying to self daily.
No, it's profound. Before we get onto the last question, since we have to close, can you see it's almost 2 hours? I kind of knew sometimes it's just, you know, the flow, it just says don't stop, so we didn't stop. Before we move on to the next one, I just wanted to also raise this. You mentioned how you had this orderliness or this continuity and structure without realizing or trying. For me, immediately the thought that came to mind, and maybe this is a hypothesis, but I think it's pretty airtight. It's because you're authentic. So when you do the things authentically, what will often happen is you have themes in your life that are natural. You have this specific topic, it's your interest, and when you share your interest openly, you become known for that thing. And the more authentic you are and the more authentically you lead your life, the more you will actually have that through line, that alignment, and then you'll have this order that came out of nowhere. But you're literally just talking about the things that speak to you, the things that come to you.
That. I love it's airtight. It's definitely airtight. I receive and I agree.
Good. Lesego, if you could go back to first year, second year, maybe even high school Lesego, what would you tell her?
Don't just ride the wave. Put some thought in things, you know? And I wish I would have embraced myself sooner. Because one thing that I realized is it is really the hand of God that in my fumblings and my following the wave too much, it was from a place of naivety and also a lack of information. I think you mentioned it earlier that my decisions, they were like not well informed. And I think it's because of the fact that I was just riding the wave, you know, and I think I don't regret my decisions, but I just wish I really understood at that time that you can think for yourself, you know, you can have goals for yourself. And if you have interests, genuine interests, do something about it, research it, see what it can do for you, you know, because I think where I am is exactly where I needed to be, but I probably could have gotten here sooner. Do you know what I mean? Like, it probably didn't need a lot of so many waves and so many like, oh my gosh, you know, because at the end of the day, you will always gravitate towards self. But I just wish I understood, and I would tell myself that don't just ride the wave, think for yourself, and your thoughts are also as equally important than others.
No, that's huge. And like I can even see on my journey, like when I failed, I attributed a lot to not knowing why I was here. So I just really didn't care. And it was also because I lacked information. I didn't make a completely informed choice. I wasn't making completely informed choices. But yeah, that's a pretty good one. Try not to ride the wave. Try to think. Um, try to be better informed. I wouldn't say I was thinking of saying as informed as possible, but that can often make you a little bit of a procrastinator. You hide behind the guise of being informed and you won't act. I think making informed decisions as opposed to perfectly informed decisions,
Sure.
because it just doesn't exist.
Yep.
So yeah, that was yeah. Yo, guys, if you've not already, please, so please follow this learning growth contribution. It will be in the show notes. Lesego's LinkedIn, Instagram, all their social medias. She actually posts like different content on all of them. So you'll probably enjoy every single one. They will be linked in the show notes. Yes. Oh, this is a crazy one. Goodness gracious. Guys, I hope it does not end, but that it begins in CASA. Lesego.
Alunga, thank you so much for having me. Everyone, good night, goodbye, shop shop.